So let's talk about lifelines. A lot of people say don't rely on your lifelines, and there's a good reason for that. Because of this white vinyl that's on there, you can't see if it's rusting underneath. So when you need it, it might snap. And unfortunately, people pay much more attention to their shrouds than they do to their lifelines. But they are still a safety device, and they do work sometimes. So I had an incident where I lost my footing and slid onto my butt, and my momentum would have carried me right off the boat. I was up on the bow, but the lifeline caught me, and so that kept me from going into the water. So should they be tight or should they be loose? So I did a little research on the subject, and the article that I found said that the lifeline should not deflect more than 2 inches under 11 foot-pounds of pressure. Now, that's probably, I'm guessing, geared toward larger cruising boats, because it's going to depend on, how big your stanchions are, how far apart they are, how they're spaced basically, and those kinds of things. And, the type of wire that your lifelines use. So my stanchions are about 5 feet apart. And so, basically I put them as tight as I can. I have one that has stretched out a little bit because of the fenders hanging on it. And so that one just won't go fully tight. But on the other side, I keep it as tight as I can. So what's the rationale for keeping them tight? Well, there's a couple things. One is physics, right? So when you stretch something very tight and you have it, basically anchored on the ends with, stanchions in between, what you want is you don't want to have it deflect a lot, and then based on the angles, that puts a lot of pressure on the stanchions. You want the pressure to go all the way to the ends to where it's anchored. And so by keeping it tight, then you keep those angles close to zero. And so that immediately transfers all the force to the anchors on each end. The other piece is feedback. So when you step over something, think of like stepping over a brick wall, or maybe a metal bar or something. If your foot touches it, you're trying to clear it, but if your foot touches it, because it doesn't move, you get immediate feedback, and so you know that you haven't cleared it. And so what do? You kick up your foot a little more. Now, with a loose lifeline, your foot might grab it, and because it's moving with your foot, you won't notice immediately until it tightens up. And then you get that feedback, but at that point, it might be too late. And so, having it tight gives you that immediate feedback. So the other piece, and granted, I'm not a physicist or an engineer, but I suspect it has to do with shock load. So if the lifelines are loose and you start falling and putting pressure on them, you have to take up the slack first, basically, and then once they tighten, that's going to put a shock load on it. And so that's when things break, right? When you exceed their break strength through those heavy loads. So, I suspect that's also at play here. All right, so that's my discussion on lifelines. I hope you found this helpful, and as always, thanks for watching.